I'm Lee Eckroth, co-founder of Majordomo. You may have seen some snippets of an interview with some of our clients on the internet or on social media. We realize that any system is an investment in time and money, which is why we've chosen to make the interviews available in their entirety so that you can hear our clients' unvarnished feedback on our product and services. Enjoy.
So, Marty, how this works is Lee and Majordomo, they want to not only get your feedback, but they want to improve their product and their service. And so Lee brings in somebody like me to ask you questions. And if you answer them in an unvarnished fashion, then it gives him an opportunity to get your feedback and also to improve the product.
Okay.
That's why it's easier for you to just chat with me, like we're having a conversation, as opposed to with Lee. So
yeah.
And of course, that's the focus here, is to make other people like you, and you as well, because you're a customer, make sure that they have the best experience possible.
Right.
So just take a minute and who are you, and like how long have you? I mean, I've known you since like 2013. How long have you? Who are you, and how long have you been an agent for?
I'm Marty Fulford, and I'm an agent with TNC. I think I've been an agent for about 7.5, 8 years.
Just take a second and describe what this local market is,
okay,
and how you have seen this market change over that
period of time. So when I first started here in the Corvallis, Albany, Philomath areas, it was really different. It was just getting the ends of the recession. And so there weren't a lot of agents, there weren't a lot of clients. And it gave me the opportunity to learn a lot at that time. And then things started picking up. I would say about 2.5, 3 years into my business, there started to be this really huge escalation in business happenings. And it's just nice to keep on going with that. Right now, we're kind of seeing, for me, at least a leveling off. Things are staying busy, but it's a good busy.
And I know you send out, like I get the social media updates where you give sort of like the weekly or the monthly update, just for people to get a better understanding of who you are, the type of people that are in this market. Give kind of like one of those market updates of what is going on in the Corvallis, Albany area. Okay.
So right now we're having about 90 in the zip code 97330. We're having roughly about 94 listings currently active, not under contract. And I'm just giving an estimate because I don't remember my numbers exactly, but I think the median sales price is about $453 with a square foot average of around $220.
And how have you seen that change over the past, is this a buyer's market? Is this a seller's market? What's going on?
It's a great question. So right now we're in it's considered a slight seller's market, and that's because of inventory. Because we don't have a lot of inventory, the sellers still have an advantage. But since I would think about the July timeframe, it's kind of plateaued, leveled off, going up a little bit up and down. Those that are priced right in great condition sell fast. Other ones that are having struggles just take a little bit more time, but it takes about 90 days to get it closed.
In terms of you, last year, since this is January, let's compare the last 3 years.
Okay.
How have things changed for you in terms of the number of units that you've sold over those last 3 years?
I would say about 3 years ago, I was selling maybe 30 units. Last year, I sold 43. My average sales price has increased each year, but the market's also increased each year. But my volume has dramatically gone up.
And what's your goal for next year?
My goal's 50 next year. It's really big, and I'm really nervous, but
What makes you nervous about that?
I think it's because it's so big for me that I'm just like, ooh, is this attainable? But if you don't try, if you don't reach, right, you're never going to get anywhere. So I'm just going to go for it,
So if you went from 30 to 43, then 43 to 50.
But it was like 30 to 35 to 43. And it was nice hitting my goal of 40 this year because I thought, or last year, I'm not going to make that, right? And then I did. And so that was like, let's up the game. Let's see if I can, because I've gotten some much better systems in place that I'm like, oh, okay. Now that I've got these systems in place that are reducing my time savings on each transaction, hopefully I can do more transactions and help more people.
Would you consider yourself more of a buyer's agent, a seller's agent? How do those numbers break down for you?
Currently I have more, or last year I did more buying transactions. Currently I'm working with more sellers. But I say overall I do more buyer's work than seller's work.
And how does that break down from, I guess, either that 90-day perspective or from an effort perspective for you?
It's so different. It depends on the price point of the buyer. It depends on the price point of the seller, right? If somebody's in Corvallis and they want to sell a $350,000 house, that's pretty easy, right? But if I have a buyer for a $350,000 house, that's pretty hard. It's a highly competitive market. Usually we're getting multiple offers if it's in good shape. And you have to write a lot of offers. And it's an emotional journey for buyers. And you want to take as much of that emotional up and down out of it, right? Let's keep it nice and steady and happy.
How would you describe your system? Is your system, you mentioned that you have built a lot of systems in the past 8 years. How would you describe those systems and their effectiveness for a buyer's agent versus a seller's agent? Are you stronger in one than the other for your systems?
Probably I'm stronger with my buyers just because I've had more experience with it. And systems don't come naturally to me. So it's something I've had to learn and acquire and learn a lot from other agents and from my clients. There are things that I haven't always done right. And I'm like, oh, that's an opportunity for growth. And so I've had to evolve and to get more stuff like we all do. We're never perfect all the time, but I'm probably more systematic in my buyer's approach than in my seller's approach. And so I have to work on that as well.
So give an example of how a system allows you to give better service to one of your clients.
Well, when people see upfront what you're going to do and how the process is going to go, they're far more educated. They have a management of expectations and they understand. And when people understand and you've gone over the entire process with them, they tend to follow along the process with you and they tend not to, kind of squirrel out here and squirrel out there. So they're tending to stay more focused. They're reliable and they're trustworthy. It increases their confidence when they know you have a process. Right? And they know that you're going to take care of something. Oh, Marty's got that. This is what's in the process. This is how it's all been outlined. And so that confidence reduces emotional reaction.
In terms of systems, and in terms of, it is an emotional process.
Oh, yeah.
As a buyer or a seller,
yeah.
There's a lot on the table. What do you think is your barrier to reaching that 50 this year?
Could you repeat that last part? I was having trouble hearing you.
What, in terms of barriers to where you want to be, or in terms of getting to that 50 this year, have you identified what those barriers are for you this year? Are they systems? Are they people? Are they?
I think it's been systems, and that for the last 2 months has been my driving focus beyond my clients and my family. But it's even over Christmas break, I was working on, okay, how am I going to get this all done, right? What is the timeline? Let me read the books. Let me make sure that I'm being supported on this. So that's been huge because it's not a natural personality trait that I have. So if you're lacking in some area and you're able to get the help with that, then get the help with that. And the other thing I would think with the 50 is the mental nervousness, right? And it's like, oh, am I worthy of that, right? Can I really do that? Am I really at that level? And am I good enough to be able to properly handle all of it and doing a good job? Because that's more important to me than hitting the 50. Because I want to do a really good job for my people because it's a relationship business when it comes down to it. And maintaining that relationship and that trust with people is more important than a sale.
In terms of relationships, in terms of trust, integrity, why did you, I know family is very important to you.
Yeah.
Why did you get into this business in the first place?
Well, I was a special ed teacher. And when I moved to Oregon, I couldn't do that. I would have had to have gone back to school. And I I was at a point in my life when I didn't want to do that. And I'd always kind of bought and sold my own homes. And so I'm like, oh, let me see if I can kind of do that. And it really is amazing how much it parallels teaching. So, what you're doing is you're listening to what people say. It's affecting their kind of communication. How do they communicate, right? Some people need a phone call every day, where other people, if you send them a text or an email, that's what they need. And it's just the assessment of needs and the solving of the problem. And I love solving a problem, right? I love to get in dirty and to do that stuff. But it's all of those things combined. And so real estate and teaching are very similar. And you find a lot of real estate brokers are former teachers. Ask around and you'll be like, oh, yeah, I used to teach. Oh, I used to teach. And there's a flexibility. And people who teach usually like people. So, or let's hope they do, right?
In terms of home inspections, in terms of that 90-day, right? You get somebody who comes to you, they put their trust in you because ultimately you and I know that it's more than just price for somebody. There's a lot online. When that home inspection comes in, what are the concerns that your clients have, and then what are the concerns that you have, and where do they compare, where do they overlap, and where do they not overlap?
All right, so I tell all my clients I have 5 rules, and I only disclose one at the beginning of working with them. But one rule that I have, and I'll tell people on occasion if they're real worrywarts, and that's please don't make me write an idiot addendum, which basically means this house is not structurally sound. You're going against the advice of your agent, the home inspector, the contractors, things like that. So it's really an unsafe and bad investment, right? I have had to do that once, and I never want to do that again. And I named the addendum idiot, right? Because I thought it would get them to change their mind. It didn't. We still have a great relationship, and they talk to me still. But I want to make sure that I want to help them make the best decision possible for their circumstances and their tolerances. Some people have a higher tolerance and experience doing work than others. A first-time homeowner needs usually a little bit more hand-holding than others. And it's the process of getting a trusted inspector, because that is huge, right? You need to get somebody in there that knows the systems of the house, that knows what to do, and that can document it and communicate it well to your clients. Because who you refer to is also a reflection of who you are and what you do. We are our associations. And so the inspection is vital. And then what I would do is I used to take that inspection, print it off, and just go through it. Before I would go through it with my clients, because I needed to be versed about what was going on in the home inspection. And I would be at the inspection, so I would hear it, but you also have to kind of concretely go through it.
What are the consequences of not choosing a competent inspector? Or maybe a better question is, what characteristics do you look for in a home inspector as an experienced agent?
Well, of course, you want to make sure that they're licensed, bonded, and insured. I am usually present when I tried new inspectors out. I would be present and I would watch and listen and hear what they had to say. And the level of detail in the report is very important, right? Because it's a liability issue for them. More importantly, it's the interest of my buyers. What's important to them, and is it being fully evaluated? And then it's the liability issues, right? Not only to the home inspector, but to us as agents. And it's not necessarily personal or financial liability, but it's that responsibility of, am I taking care of you? Am I doing what's best in your interest, right? Because in the end, we don't make any decisions. We're a vehicle to get from point A to point B, but we're not decision makers. And so we need to be able to accurately provide information. We're information providers, so that people can make the best, most well-rounded decision. So the inspector that I prefer is a little OCD. He takes lots of pictures, he documents things well, but then he doesn't tend to be an alarmist when he talks to people. I want them to come to the last part of the inspection so that they can talk to him, right? So that they can hear what he has to say, he can explain what's going to be on the report, and then they know. And so when they go over, they're not surprised. And he tends to, in person, go over and say, hey, look, I have to make boilerplate statements, right? And people will understand that you have to make a boilerplate statement because, we're in a litigious society. And he's available to them. So he will go back, and my clients have called him years later and gone, hey, Ken, I've got a question on this. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he's actually got this photographic memory. I'm a little jealous of that. But he's just a super good guy, and he's very, very trustworthy. And so he does a great job for my client. So I keep referring to him. Of course, if somebody wants to go with someone else, then I'll fully support that decision. But that's just the one that I prefer.
As an agent, how important is that inspection to you, for you to be able to have that buyer's best interest in mind, to be able to be that advisor to them? If you did not have that inspection, how much of that view would you be missing?
Well, first of all, I probably wouldn't work with a buyer that didn't do a home inspection, unless they were a licensed contractor or there was an extenuating circumstance, because that wouldn't be really representing them in their best interest. So on that premise, I find that the home inspection is vital, right? It gives them an accurate analysis of what the condition of their property is. And it helps them determine what's right for them, what repairs can they make, what are they going to ask the seller to make. And really, there's things on there where you're just like, yeah, okay, whatever, that's not a big deal, right? But to some people, those little things are bigger deals than others. But by being present and by learning so much from these inspectors and contractors, I'm like, you know what? I actually think this is something we have to look more into. Or, I've heard about this or that, so let's check that out.
How important is that inspection to the pricing or to your offer strategy?
Oh, it's huge, right? So I don't want every agent hearing it, but you walk into a house and there's many, many things that you're evaluating. You know that you have that in your hip pocket, that, okay, there's, two really big times to negotiate, right? One is up front and one is after inspections. You can't do huge negotiations at both points, because in the end, you want to create a win-win environment for both parties. Nobody wants to be put into the corner, and, we don't react well with that, right? So knowing that you're going to have a good inspector, being able to, check a house out by sight when you attend and you visit and you're doing that is just so important. And you have to tell. I mean, even today I said, this might come up on a home inspection. What do you think about it? This house is actually priced per the condition that I can see. That doesn't include what's in the attic and that doesn't include what's in the crawl. But I was able to point out, I have a little bit of concerns about this and I have a little bit of concerns about that.
In terms of a traditional home inspection report, obviously speed is very important to you.
Speed?
The speed of being able to complete the transaction.
Yeah.
Being able to have as much information as you possibly can to advise your client.
Right.
Where, if anywhere, are traditional home inspection reports lacking in terms of, they give you information, but where are they falling short from your system standpoint?
I don't know if it's from a systems or a preference standpoint. I like pictures. I think that people learn multitude of ways, and a lot of home inspectors just do a black and white, hey, let me write out what the problem is. And there's so many people that are like, oh, I see the picture and I understand. I hear what you're saying and that makes sense to me. And then that makes sense when they're reading and reviewing the report. For me, so many inspectors don't take great pictures and don't accurately describe what the true condition is. Some people are just frankly alarmists, and that isn't a good thing, right? Because then you're getting people overly emotionally involved in something that might not be necessary.
How does that work? Because technically the inspection report is purchased by the buyer, right? Mm-hmm. So could they possibly see that report without you seeing it first and then getting that alarmist? Mm-hmm. Walk me through that. What happens?
So an inspection has to be shared with an agent. And when I'm at the home inspection with my clients, we just have that conversation with the inspector. Hey, Just let them know that it's okay that I receive a copy of this inspection. And yeah, I receive all the copies. When I was a new agent, right, I sometimes didn't know all of that and how to ask them what to do, but you usually get a copy of it. But now I can't remember the last time I didn't get a copy of an inspection report. And it depends on, again, who the inspector is as to how much I trust that report, how much I know that inspector. But it's not just the inspection, right? Then you go through the entire report, right? You highlight issues, you sit down, you talk to your client, and that takes a lot of time, right? Because you're there to provide quality service, right? And you are the expert, and you're the ones who have sat with them in a car and listened to what their wants, needs, and concerns are. And you're like, oh, I remember them talking about blah, blah, blah being an issue. Foundation was an issue. Currently, I'm working with someone who's terrified of there being a pest control issue. That's a controllable factor. Most people aren't necessarily alarmed by that. But if these people are, if that's really their highest touch point, then okay, I need to pay particular attention to that. But my job is to listen to what people are most concerned about, go through, find if that's of actual concern or a problem at that house that they're considering purchasing. And then if it is, let's have contractor day and bring people out, assess the needs, get bids, and then negotiate repairs. So I like to do my inspections. As soon as I write an offer, I call my inspector to reserve a date and time. And then so that I have enough time in that 10 or 12 day negotiation period to, if I need to have a contractor day, that they have time to come out and to give us bids so that we still have time to negotiate and not push that to the, 12th hour. I'm mixing my metaphors, but until the last second, right? Because that's just not fair to the other agent and the sellers because they're wondering what's going on.
Sure. One of the systems that you've brought on this year, so 50 homes roughly 1 week for the year on average. One of the systems that you've brought on this year is Majordomo's Domoreport.
Yeah.
Right? So talk a little bit about how the Domoreport ties this all together for you. You can talk about it from the perspective of the individual transaction, but also from the perspective of helping you meet that goal of scaling.
Oh, so I've been using Majordomo for about 3 months-ish. I would have to check with them and ask them if I'm right. But what I do is I get the inspection report, I go over to my other computer screen, I upload the report, and then I go home, right? And then what it does is it takes it, and within 24 hours, I get it back. Usually it's earlier than that. And it's all kind of color-coded, right? So it takes what the inspector has to say, but there's been times when they've brought other things up into areas of concern or let's notice this. And then it gives you, I don't know if it's my favorite part or one of my favorite parts. It's color-coded, so it's kind of really nice and easy to read. But it gives you an estimate of what the contractors are going to cost to get that fixed. And in doing so, I don't have to do contractor days unless it's a really big issue or something where I'm like, oh, this is a real big touch point, right? Let's still bring somebody out on that. But I would say that it has reduced just from a work standpoint about 6 hours off my plate, right? I still go through the inspection report, but the in-depth I have to go through, sometimes I would have to go back and check other transactions and seeing, oh, how much did that cost to get that repaired, right? So I could give people, roughly accurate information, but really I'm just guessing and I'm putting myself out there in a way that probably isn't always for the best. So it takes, all right, we've got dry rot in this one part, it's about this long, it's roughly going to cost this amount, right? And it gives a range of the low to high as to how much that's going to cost to repair. And then my client and I, because I always share it with my client, and I let them know up front, hey, when we do our buyer consultation, hey, when it comes to the inspection, then I'm going to upload it to Majordomo, and then we're all going to get this report, and then we can sit down and go over it. And so they've received it. They've looked at not only just the home inspection report, but then they've looked at the Majordomo report, and then we come in and we talk about it. and we make sure and we click on those items that are most important, and then they see how much it's going to cost. Because buyers, and I don't think it's just buyers, but I think naturally we as humans overestimate the cost of repairs. Oh my gosh, that's going to cost $20,000. And I'm like, oh, no, that's like $7,000, But that's not my job, right? That's not my area of expertise to constantly correct people. And so having a tool that's going to give people a rough estimate on the cost of repairs based on the information that's given to them, it's a deal saver, and it has been a deal saver for me, because I had some clients that were really they were first-time home buyers, and they got really nervous. Oh my gosh, this is awful, Marty, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's wait for this report to come in. Let's see if we can, get this resolved, and let's just calm down. It's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out one way or another. If it works, that would be ideal. But if it doesn't, that's okay too. But by getting the report and seeing the numbers and having it all bracketed out, it released their stresses, their stressors, right? And we were able to provide that also to the listing agent and say, hey, look, this is what it's going to cost. This is how we came to those numbers. And is your client going to agree to that? And they did. And so it was I was so excited. I had to go tell them about it because it was a deal saver, right? And, and it was a tough one going on because it was an investor selling who was cash strapped, right? And it was, new buyers coming, and usually they're cash strapped, right? And so having repairs that need to be made, and overestimating how much that's going to cost, it can be crippling to people.
So there's the savings of 6 hours per home times 50. That's roughly 300 hours a year for your bill.
Right.
That's a flat number. That's 300. But talk about, I guess, the time savings, but then also talk about, is there any competitive advantage or speed that you get by having the Domoreport versus just the time savings? I mean, 300 hours, who would want to have 300 hours?
Right.
Just talk about that.
So what it does is, I had some new clients who had previously worked with someone that wasn't a great fit, and that happens to us all. And when we sat down for the buyer consultation and I brought out, hey, this is what we're going to do, they got so excited. They were like, oh my gosh, my other agent didn't do this for us, right? And so it's the service that they're putting value on, because it's something that they can go back to that's easier to read than a home inspection. And that is helping them find, and it's just a resource, right? And we all want these resources to help us live our life better and easier and more efficiently. Am I answering the question?
Yeah, and I want to know what you're going to do with those 300 hours. How will you leverage the time that you save?
I'll probably do a lot more calls to my clients, right? A lot more checking in with people. And then I'd like to go kayaking in the river.
Fair enough answer. What about, now, this report is checked by real human beings.
Right.
Not just automatically generated. What sense does that give you, knowing that, first of all, do you know what type of person is looking at this? What type of experience do they have? The person or people who are reviewing these reports?
I honestly don't know that answer.
Okay.
I can find it out and let you know. And that should have been a question I asked.
But what is it, as an agent, what does it mean to you to know that these reports are being vetted by real humans?
I really appreciate the fact that it's being vetted by humans. I really appreciate the fact that there's a chat box that when I've had problems, I've been able to say, hey, I've got a question about this, or this doesn't look the way that I was expecting this to look, right? That they've gotten back to me really quickly and promptly. And it's all been through this little chat box in there. And so I can do it at home, I can do it in the office, I won't do it on the river though.
Probably for the best for safety. So I want to talk about the challenges that you generally have with inspections, with the second half of the home inspection here, in terms of, we kind of talked about this in terms of reviewing the inspection, but then in terms of deciding on priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, Has the Domoreport helped with deciding with priorities?
It has helped. It's also educated. And it's helped my clients to look at this and go, oh, I can do that. Because it spells it out a little bit in clear language, right? Inspection reports still have that, liability coverage language, that they have to watch out for. But when you click on the little button and it pops up, okay, here is what the inspector said, and this is what we recommend, it's really clearly and simply written. And so that level of communication and understandability, they took it from being, a much higher level of knowledge of the subject. They kind of, I don't want to say dumb it down, but they simplify the wordage that's used in a home inspection to make it plainer for people who aren't in the business to understand. And that's invaluable. And it's something that, I have a current client that is like, well, it turned out that the transaction didn't close, right? And they were like, well, Marty, will you do that again? Of course I'll do that again, right? That's just a service that I provide. Because it eases people's minds, it saves people time, and they can come back to it. And I'm hoping they add more features to it for that purpose, right? I would like to just see more and have more follow up on it, meaning, oh, this actually got done. Let's check that off the list, right? Because sometimes they have to get things done. If it's a smoke and carbon monoxide detector, right? It's still on the Domoreport, and that's a thing in red because that's a safety issue. But that's going to get done before closing. So having that checked and marked off is a really lovely thing, going, well, now we've got this done, and now we've got this done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so how do you see, so you potentially see this as something being used after the sale by the client?
Mm-hmm.
Domoreport? Just talk about that for a second. How is this be used by them after the sale?
Well, it gives them a way to do the work or to have the work done in a clear and concise manner that they can track and follow. That's how I view it. It also gives me a clear snapshot in one location that I can call up and go, I remember that this was kind of a problem because I learned something down the line that might apply to somebody else, right? And I want to get in touch with them and see, was that called out on their inspection report? But now having all of the inspections in one location, I can do that much simpler. And I can give a call saying, hey, remember this was called out, blah, blah, blah. Go back to your Domoreport and check this out and see if you can do that, if you can address that issue, because it might have gotten bigger.
So agents live or die by referrals. I have never gotten a call from an agent, well, realistically, other than saying thank you. I haven't gotten a follow-up call ever, but it sounds like this might be a tool that you could use 6 months, a year down the line to check up on people, potentially, to maintain a relationship.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
It has, and it's something that I was talking to one of the people about, because it's nice to have those reminders in, right? Even if it's the reminders of, you had a lot of outside, what are they called? Faucets, right? It's the time of the year to cover those up, right? Especially with the first-time home buyers. Or it's time to get your filters changed, or it's the service request, or, when we were doing this last time, you mentioned this, right? Being able to take notes in that system and have it flag an alert and send me a little alert email or text would be the bomb.
So very personalized contact.
Right.
Yeah, wow. That builds relationship.
It builds relationship because that's all it is. It's all a relationship business. And people need to know that they're being taken care of. And it's just another tool in the tool belt to make sure that people are being taken care of after the sale. It's not just about negotiating with the seller. It's about, let me take care of you when we're done, right? Let me not leave you in the lurch. And let me remind you that there's this tool and resource available.
In terms of leaving in the lurch or running into issues, have you, or I suppose over the course of 8 years, what problems have arisen as a result of, in that second half of the home inspection, that delayed the transaction?
The biggest one is getting contractors out there to give you an evaluation of it, because just because it's a client's big issue doesn't mean it's their big issue. Especially with our contractors being as busy as they are, and if a home is occupied, it's really hard to constantly get service providers out there to give estimates, and making that into a block is really a challenge. If it's a vacant home, it's not as big of a deal, but still getting contractors in there and getting an accurate estimate of what the repairs are going to cost, that is such a time-intensive task. And sometimes people say, hey, can I just have a copy of the home inspection? And you're like, oh, this kind of covers that. You know, I have several contractors who will just say, hey, Marty, send me over a copy of the home inspection. Okay. And I cut and paste that area of the home inspection. We sent it out. And this takes that over because I've already have that done, right? And so now if I'm calling people because I'm like, yeah, we've done that. But this is what our bigger concern is.
So a lot of these questions, Marty, have been kind of ad hoc. There's one question here that's very specific. It says, previously shared with us that the Domoreport helped your clients understand their inspection much better and save the sale plus a lot of time. 4 exclamation marks.
Yes.
Tell us about the 4 exclamation marks.
So it was so emotional, right? And when people are really emotional, you really want to help them. I really want to help them. And they were in a position where they were going to lose their rental because they had given notice before the inspection period was over, which is one of the recommendations and guidelines I give to buyers is you never give your notice until this is done. But they had done that. They had taken the risk. And then they get the inspection report and they're freaking out and the world's falling in on them. But by using this, I was able to say, hey, no, it's okay. It's okay. Let's talk about this. Let's go over. And it just was really happy because it was able to take such a burden off their shoulders and to solve the problem, right? And make us all look so good in the process, right? Because we were able to solve the problem in a quick and efficient manner. And they were able to move in and not be homeless. It's a huge thing.
How much harder do you think that would have been without the Domoreport? If you just had that legalese boilerplate.
Oh, I don't think we would have closed.
Talk.
I don't think we would have closed from the point of view is I was struggling it was in a remote location, so struggling getting contractors to come out. I think it was right around Thanksgiving, beginning of December, right? So people had other things on their agenda than my clients. We're also short on a time frame. The seller was out of town and they weren't wanting to extend the negotiation timelines, right? And so without having that estimate that was built in, I couldn't get any contractors out there. I had clients who were in the lurch. I had a seller who was in the lurch, but it gave the other agent, when I sent over the reports, she's like, how'd you come up with this number? So I clicked on all the buttons, right? Which gave you the summary because she didn't want a copy of the inspection report, which is normal. I was able to attach that to the repair addendum and she was like, oh, okay, I get this. This makes sense to me. And so we were able to kind of work through that because there were also tenants in that house at the same time. So just the layers upon layers, I was like, it felt like it was pulling it out of a magic hat.
How do you tell? So this is new. This is like a new system
Mm-hmm.
that many buyers will never have experienced before. How do you introduce this to them? You say, hey, I'm going to run this. I'm going to automatically put this thing on here and it's going to spit up.
Oh, it's really fun. So I do it during the buyer consultation. So they're sitting in my office and we've kind of, by the time that I go over this, I've kind of gotten an understanding of where their price point is. And now I've done enough in Majordomo, and plus Majordomo I think has templates or has samples from other areas at different price points. Then I pull up an example of one and I show them what's going to happen along with the piece of paper that I give them. And I explain that this is just the second half of their home inspection, and this is a service that I'm providing, and this is going to help them, and I show them how it's going to help them, because it is new, and people need the information in order to trust a system or to trust something.
What about your system, the process? How does the Domoreport fit into your system? How does it potentially, you talked about 6 hours per post, but how does it fit into your system?
So it's reduced the time from about 6 hours to about 2 tops, usually 2, and that most of that is sitting there with someone if they need that. Sometimes people don't want to do that. I take the inspection when it comes in my email, and then I upload it into the Majordomo system, and then they give me a text as well as an email when it's ready, which is really nice, because sometimes we're out and about. If I get the text, then I immediately text my clients and say, hey, remember when we talked about this? Your Majordomo report is ready. Please go in and check that out. I'm going to be doing it today, and we'll talk at this time about it. And so it gives them the tool to check things out, because they've already had the inspection report for about 24 hours before they get the Domo report. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, and it's going to tie into my next question.
Okay.
So let's say that we have a time machine, and we're talking to Marty of 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Marty who's looking to London.
Mm-hmm.
The average number of transactions per agent in this area is what I think.
Oh, I don't know.
10 per year.
Do you have any idea? Maybe 12. I don't know. I should know that.
You're above average, I guess.
I think I'm probably above average.
So, how would you describe the Domo report to you from 3 years ago?
I would have probably said Alleluia, right? I think as a newer or younger broker, it would have helped me even more than it helps me now. Because I've gotten enough experience now to know bigger issues and smaller issues. I think, as I call it, new baby agent, when I was a new baby agent, you're really going through, and it's so time intensive, and everything seems like a mountain, that it takes those mountains and it just puts it into the boxes and helps clarify the problems into actionable items. I think that it would have been hard, knowing myself, to have trusted something because I wasn't confident in my knowledge itself, my base knowledge. But it helps me to increase my base knowledge, because I've looked in there and seen, oh, that's how you repair that. Because sometimes I haven't understood the language in the inspection reports, and how it's written out in the Domo report has been clearer and easier to understand. I probably still would have done that, but it wouldn't have been necessary. Do you need to get some water?
Just going to grab I think I have my coffee over here. Just going to take a quick drink. Just a few more questions on it, Marty.
I'd like to answer that question differently.
Please. I hate when those coughs just sneeze like onion.
Is it okay? Is it okay if I go ahead?
Yeah, please.
So you asked me how I would have handled it when I was first starting out, or even 4 years ago. And I think it would have solved a lot of problems with different, and lessened the memories I had to make and the experiences I had to learn, right? Because I wouldn't have made a mountain out of a molehill. Because there were times when I was a newer agent that I would be like, oh, the this is written in the safety concerns on a home inspection report, so this has got to be a big deal, right? That I would put a higher value on things. And I think that this lessens that, right? This takes it and puts it in a manner that helps agents understand perspective as well, especially when you're younger and not younger, but when you're newer.
If you were talking to that younger agent, and you could say only one sentence about what this is. Like, for example, our iPhone is like our computer in our pocket, right? How would you describe the Domo report in a way that younger you would not have been able to object to?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say stay in your area of expertise and let those who are experts stay in their lane.
How does the Domo report help you do that?
They're experts in that, and I'm not. I'm a vehicle to get from point A to point B. And I'm there to help people along that journey, but I'm not a home inspector and I'm not a contractor, but I'm a negotiator. And so I just need the tools to help my clients get what they need.
What is one thing about the Domo report that you'd like to see more of, or that you think is missing?
Well, I want the reminders, and I think I've mentioned that before, the check-off lists of when people get things done. I think as people, as humans, we like to mark things off our to-do list, and I think having that ability to do that on there would be really lovely. I think for some people, it would be nice for them to learn how to look at a house when they're going through, to have a tool that says, hey, look, I'm going into this house. Here's a little app or a tool that we can use. I think that would be really fabulous. I think that it would help people understand the process and the responsibilities of homeownership. And I think that I haven't mentioned that, but it's so vital, right? Domoreport helps homeowners be better homeowners by knowing conditions of the house, the cost to do it. But when it gives you the cost, it's not just saying, oh, you have to go out and get a contractor, to do this. Here's a way that you can do this yourself, right? And that's helping people help themselves. And when we're all first-time home buyers, sometimes we need to be able to figure out how to do things. And this is just something that helps somebody be a better homeowner, which is going to help them out when they go to sell the house, right? Because the house is going to be in a better shape than it was because they were able to make the necessary corrections.
If you had to pick one, if you could only pick one favorite thing about the Domo report, as an agent who's striving for 50 this year, what would it be?
Only one thing. It would be time savings. And only one.
I'll let you do. All right, you
Can I do two?
yeah, you can do two. About so the time savings is the result. Definitely talk about that.
Right.
Talk about the unique, because this is a unique product, right? So you talked about the color coding, you talked about that, so just, I'll let you, okay, you can have as many as you want. I'm not going to.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, because I like so much. From a client management standpoint, I like the Majordomo or the Domo report. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Because it helps clients understand the condition of their house in a clear, concise, manageable manner that's not overwhelming. I like that people are able to do some things on their own, that they get the costs, right? That people are so tech savvy that it follows in line with that, especially here in Corvallis because we have so many engineers. And I like that it stays with them, right? And it's something easy for them to look into. I'd like for it to tell me when they look into it, so that I can see have they really reviewed this before they talk to me about it, right? Because I want the decisions to be theirs and not my recommendations or just because something's in red, right? I want people to honestly evaluate it, and I think it will help them be able to do that in a really great manner. And plus, it's kind of nice to have a tool that not everybody's using. And I think it's going to make my clients better clients, happier homeowners. And I think that's the best thing, is I want happy homeowners and people that are going to answer my call when I call to say, hey, how are things going, right? The more that they're able to do for themselves, the happier people tend to be.
That's a reflection on you as an agent.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a relationship builder, right? It's not taking away, we don't need to be a hero, we need to be an advocator. We need to be an information provider, right? We need to be the supporter, but we don't need to be a hero. And I think sometimes that's where agents, and I myself have gotten into trouble, right? Thinking that I have to solve your problem, when I don't have to solve your problem. You can solve your problem, and here's a tool in which we can get there to do that. And I really like that, because it's an important mindset to remember, right? We want to help, but we don't have to do everything. And this allows people to do and help themselves.
So just a couple more questions here. But who would you say, what type of agent is this not for?
I don't know who this wouldn't work for. I guess it wouldn't be for a hero agent, right?
What is that?
You know, somebody who feels that they have to answer all the questions and be the only resource for people. But I can't imagine why someone wouldn't want to use it, right? We all trust technology and tools to help us. And this is just another form of technology and tools that's going to help people make great decisions.
I'm going to push you a little bit here.
Okay. Please, feel free. I can take it.
We've all dealt with service providers who have 25 years of experience, but it's their first year, 25 times. Somebody who doesn't want to invest in themselves or their systems will, that type of agent, how do you think they would interact with a system like this? Somebody who doesn't want to spend it, they're, I don't want to call them a cheapskate, but we'll just say that they're kind of a cheapskate. What does the future look like for them if they're not adopting technology and they're not getting into this sort of thing?
Okay, I'm a cheapskate. I'm a terribly frugal person by nature. I don't like to part with a dime if I don't have to. However, I also understand that if I don't part with dimes, you're going to pay on one side or the other. And it's just, do you want to pay in relationships or do you want to pay in time and technology? And maybe the kind of person who doesn't want to use this technology is someone who's a control freak, right? Who feels that they just must hold on to all information. And, that would probably be someone that would probably have a hard time with giving up the control. I think that it's hard sometimes for people to realize that, there are people who still have flip phones, right? If you still have a flip phone, you're probably not going to be a great fit for Majordomo. But those agents who have smartphones, and who aren't, hoarders of all information, I think it's a graceful way of assisting clients. I don't know.
I like it. I hate to, guide answers because that's not what I'm after. There's always the person who wants to succeed in their career without making an investment.
Right.
And there's a difference between being a cheapskate and not investing. So I think you hit it. Actually, that control freak is kind of the same.
Yeah.
That coming from you.
Right. It's like people who are just so tied in on being the information provider, or, oh, I don't need that, right? Sometimes people think that they know, they've been in the business 25 years and they know everything and you don't need that to do the job. I can just tell you here. To me, that frightens me because I'm like, oh my God, that's a liability waiting to happen. But I could see that being a struggle for people who know it all and for people who want to hold it all.
last question for me, what should I have asked you that I didn't?
I'm going to hold that question on pause until I think about something.
Okay, because I'm going to swap out batteries for a second.
Okay.
Give me a second. Sorry.
I guess the only question that I'm thinking of is those clients that we have who have a hard time with technology. This might be a harder tool for them to go in and to use. I still think it's just as useful, and in fact, it might be more important at that time for those people who are a little bit adverse to that. There are going to be those people who aren't going to trust the numbers, right? And I think that just gives the opportunity to validate those numbers by having contractor day. And so if one of my clients say, hey, I don't believe that, I think it's going to be this. All right, well, then let's go out there and bring somebody out there and check that out, right? But that would be the only thing that I really think wasn't addressed, is how's the client's reactions to that? Because so far, all of the clients that I've had have been very positive. But I'm sure that there will be somebody who will want to challenge that. And so we'll just have to go back and do contractor day again.
One last question.
Okay.
What advice would you give to Lee and the Majordomo team in terms of convincing other people like you who are moving and shaking this year? Yeah, they need to get this thing. Of course, you want to have a competitive advantage.
It is a competitive advantage. That's true. However, I don't live by a scarcity mindset. I think that there's going to be enough to go around. And it's more important that everybody has use for technology, right? That we can help more people. We don't need to just say, oh, only my clients get it, right? That wouldn't come from a good place. I would like for everybody to have the same advantages. And so when I go and sell their house in 5, 6, 7, 10 years, whenever they decide to list it, that their house has been better taken care of because this is there. It's not about, if I were only to look at it short-sighted, that would be selfish. I want in the long term for everybody's houses to be in better shape. So I can sell those homes too. No, I'm serious. How to get other people on board? I think it's really important for people to remember it's not a competition, that it's a tool to help them do their job easier, better, more efficiently. But it's not a Zillow, right? And I think sometimes agents are so afraid of that online presence of tools that are out there and saying, well, I saw it on realtor.com that it said that your house was worth this, or Zillow and that your house was worth this, that I think some people who have the mentality against Zillow or realtor.com or Trulia or whatever might have an innate apprehension against using a different online tool until they actually figure it out, that it's there for the consumers. And they have to remember it's not about them. It's what is best for your clients is what you need to do. And you have to take yourself out of the equation.
Marty, I don't have any more questions. Morgan, do you have any questions? You sure?
Yeah, there's.
Okay. Well, Marty, thank you so much. I really, it's great to connect with you here.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it. So,
You're welcome.
yeah.
You've just heard Marty's feedback on how she is using the Domoreport to inform and educate her customers and close more transactions with less effort. I want you to know that we've heard Marty as well. In her interview, Marty mentioned that the easy-to-understand, color-coded, user-friendly interface is something both her and her clients really love. We've incorporated this feedback and more into our product to make the Domoreport even easier to use. If Marty's interview resonated with you, and you'd like to learn more about how the Domoreport and Majordomo can speed up your next transaction, Visit us at the link below.